G'day everybody, it's Danny here from Board Game Sanctuary. I'm a board game hobbyist from Australia who loves sharing my passion for modern board games with my friends, my family, and of course you. Today we're going to be looking at a Phil Walker Harding game called Busy Beaks. It's a card game where you can mix and match different species of birds, all with the aim of trying to nab up the most eggs first. Let's get started. The day I began pondering about ideas for this next board game video, I thought, living in Australia, the best place to do this was outside, of course. Do a bit of bird watching, I thought. Look to the skies to search for inspiration. I mean, if you squint hard enough, I'm pretty sure that's a sulphur-crested cockatoo in that tree over there. When people think of Aussie birds, they generally think of pretty, colourful lorikeets, or even pink galahs maybe. But all you get are these fellas. Ibises. Ibises everywhere, and the ibis imitators, of course. Look, even this kookaburra is laughing at my joke. Folks, you know how far I'll go when it comes to making my skits feel authentic. I tried catching this magpie just for this video. But as usual, they're just way smarter than I am. I mean, they do have wings, of course. So I guess I picked a not so good day for bird watching. But you know what? Things were looking up. I did score this excellent bird-themed board game though. Now that ain't so bad. Have you ever heard of the expression, birds of a feather flock together? I feel like this describes how I feel when I see a bird-themed board game. Wingspan, gotta have it. Songbirds, got it. Busy Beaks, got it. The idea of nurturing and caring for our feathered friends warms me deeply. Busy Beaks is an Australian bird-themed game where players will be trying to gather flocks or sets of the same species of bird, 5 to be exact. When you gather 5 birds of the same species, you can trade them in and get these cool eggs. There is a racing aspect here, because the earlier you build your sets, the more eggs from the nest you'll be able to snap up. To build your flocks of birds, you'll need to play bird cards from your hand, each with different powers. There are 14 different unique bird species in the game, 7 of which you'll use each time you play. When you play a bird card, you'll place it in one of the 3 rows in the tree. You'll then get to resolve that special bird card's ability. This might be borrowing the power of a bird to its left using the magpie. It could be drawing 3 cards using the budgerigar. It could be acquiring cards above it using the brolga. You could even use the galah to take any 2 different bird species from the entire tree. Other birds give you hunting abilities, such as the owl, where you get to announce a bird species, go through the top 8 cards of the draw deck and put any of that bird species in your hand. It could even be using the wedge-tailed eagle to look at another player's hand and take a species card of your choice. What makes this game interesting is the way you acquire your flocks. Nest in a card drawing strategy, or even shake a tail feather to pick the cards you want from the tree itself. What is interesting here is that you can't always use the same bird species. The first to trade a particular species for the first time, that player gets a bonus egg, and every egg counts towards that end total. It's a game that keeps you in the business of being busy whilst you manage those birds. When you take a bird's eye view of a game of Busy Beaks, one thing that predominantly stands out is the fact that each bird has a unique power, and the combo of those birds is going to vary each time you play, making the game quite replayable. The bird powers can be categorized into one of 3 categories. There's ones that allow you to draw cards and rely on an element of luck. There's ones that have a take that element where you might be able to take cards from another player's hand. And some cards, like this superb fairy wren, they require a little bit of planning behind them. What I like about the planning cards is the fact that there's a great level of depth to how you execute the actions to maximize the amount of cards you're getting into your hands, as well as exploiting particular birds out in the tree. So this particular fairy wren allows you to discard a card, then you play the fairy wren into one of the 3 rows of this tree, and then you play another card from your hand and you get to duplicate that 3rd card's power. Being able to do that, so it could be like a budgerigar, that potentially allows you to draw 6 cards. There's some really cool synergy that can occur throughout the game that really makes this game quite cool. One of the interesting design elements that I discovered during this game was that the eggs, whilst they are your victory points, there's only a predetermined set number at the beginning of the game. So it all really incentivizes players to cash in and build those flocks of birds as quickly as possible, because the first in will be able to nab up these high scoring egg tokens. And if you are the first to build a particular species, you'll actually gain a 1 point bonus, which you might think at this point it isn't a lot, but because those eggs are in such short supply, every single egg matters and counts to that final total. Which does bring me to a point about the eggs themselves, which you might consider to be a positive or negative thing. Depends on the way you look at this. But basically, throughout the game, if there is a player that kind of races ahead of the other players and manages to build multiple flocks really quickly, then you can pretty much calculate by looking at how many eggs everyone's got, who's definitely secured the game. There are a couple of games where I've played where in the last couple of turns, I already knew that there was no way that I could win just based on how many eggs everyone got. And sometimes that can leave you feeling a little bit empty-handed. Now, it doesn't really matter which point of view you decide to take a look at Busy Beaks. I can definitely say that it's a fun, solid family card game, and I really love the bird power combos. It definitely feels very different from other bird-themed games like Wingspan, because here it's all about cashing everything in. Whilst you're not building a tableau as such in games like Wingspan or an engine, here you're using the powers of the birds and deciding whether you should keep the bird in your hand or use it to try and get another species that you're trying to collect. That balancing act of trying to use what you've got, but also save what you've got, whilst trying to avoid other players from taking what's in your hand, makes this game feel really dynamic. And so I would definitely say that Busy Beaks is a hidden Australian gem. I just love the theme, the fact that you can kind of learn about the birds as you play the game, but then also really discover how to build those flocks in different ways. And I think it's how you actually get to the end that's more interesting than reaching the end of the game itself. So the next time you're in Australia, I definitely recommend doing a little bit of bird watching. The wildlife here is diverse and well worth observing. Just like the cool nuances and touches that this game has to offer. I think Phil Walker Harding has really produced a cool, interesting, calculated bird game. Now, in terms of considering my final verdict for Busy Beaks, I think it's a game that hits the middle ground. It is definitely a game that would suit older children, but also really cater for those cool, deep gamers out there. If you just want a really fun card game that's super quick to pick up, but also really meaty and weighted in terms of the decisions, then Busy Beaks is definitely one I would recommend. I would probably give this game a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely staying in my collection for a long time. Now, if you really enjoyed my video and really found this to be entertaining or helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. If you want to have a bit more say over the direction of where this channel goes, please consider heading over to my Patreon page and supporting me over there. It would be much appreciated. And if you're already a Patreon supporter, thank you so much. This is Danny signing out. I hope your next bird watching experience is an amazing one.